The recordings that I made in class did not have audio for some reason, so I'm re-recording this, and I'm going to do it pretty streamlined and quick, so hopefully it all will be efficient. So I'm going to start off with HDR, and I have, let's see, I actually have too many files in here, but I'm going to select the 4 that I intended for this project. So I'm going to select all 4. If you have more or less, it doesn't matter the number. As long as you're on a tripod and your exposure is going from the room being fairly bright to what's outside being fairly dark. I'm going to select all 4 of those, then go to Photo Merge HDR. The computer's going to do most of the work for us. And I'll just walk you through what these checkboxes are for. Auto Align's great because it lines up the majority of your photo. Auto Settings will make sure that it is a reasonable brightness. Ghosting is going to remove anything that might have been moving in your image, such as like people walking down the street or leaves blowing on this tree, for example. If you are sure that nothing moved, you can hit done or none, and it should be fine. And then creating a stack just hides the images that you used to create the final image. And if you choose low, medium, or high, you'll have the option for showing the ghost overlay. So you can kind of just turn that on and off, and it'll show you what's moving. But I'm going to go ahead and do none and hit merge. And once it's merged, it'll give me that one image on top of the stack, and I can go in and develop it like I normally would, doing our white balance, exposure, contrast, shadows, whites, blacks, probably a little bit of vibrance, and I could go ahead and still use the masking brush or any of the other masking tools to edit my image however I see fit. I'm not going to do that part in the interest of saving time because you all should know how to do that. And I'm going to go on to the panorama. And I just have these pictures of this car. Not my car, but student examples. So I'm going to select all of them. And I'm going to go to Photo Merge, and choose Panorama. And that will line them up. Now, I have it set on perspective here. Perspective tends to, how do I say it the right way? It distorts your images so that whatever is in the center of the image gets less distorted, whereas using spherical or cylindrical will often keep your kind of like outer box of the image straight, and it tends to actually have a little bit more distortion when you're in the middle. So maybe switch between those and see which one looks best. Since I have so many images, this takes a long time for it to put together. But you can see how, like, the car is not distorted, but the particularly bottom left and right images are. We can fill edges, which will fill in the white, but that usually does not do the greatest of job, so I tend to leave that off. Auto crop is nice because it will get rid of the white borders and crop it for you. And then auto selections gets the brightness fairly appropriate, and creating a stack again creates a stack just like the other one. Now, boundary warp, if I pull that up or down, you'll see that it's basically it's expanding my image a little, but I'm starting to see some distortion, particularly on the left side here. So I tend to leave that down unless it's really cutting off something that's important in my image. And then I'll hit merge. It'll take a little while and it'll put all these together. Now this isn't a true panorama like Vista, like the idea is in the assignment sheet, but it was the quickest example I could pull for you. We'll come back and look at that one in a second. In the meantime, I'm going to go on to the perspective correction, which we're going to do in the develop module. we can do our normal editing as we would. This is a fairly low quality image, so I'm going to just move straight down into the tabs that we're going to use. So under lens correction, chromatic aberration removal is nice. I tend to turn it on even if I don't specifically see it, but I'll bet you there'd be some at the edge of this building when there's a high contrast edge. But it's the enable profile corrections that are usually really helpful. This image doesn't have any metadata in it, so it's actually not the best example of this. I'll switch over to a different image for a second so you can see this. And what the enable profile corrections does is it's basically Adobe has taken every type of camera and lens that it could come up with, and it's essentially taken a picture of a gridded box. And what it does is that the barrel, particularly on a wide angle lens, distorts your image, kind of makes what would be straight lines curve, and this is a correction that will flip that back. It'll correct it. So I like to do that, and then under transform we have the option of transforming with a vertical up or down, horizontal left or right, rotating, changing the aspect ratio to make things wider or skinnier, scaling, which just lets us zoom in essentially, and then X offset and Y offset lets you shift things over. And the whole idea of this is, I'm going to zero these back out because I probably don't want to use most of them. Whoops. The idea of this is that you can make things that are supposed to be lined up, that are actually crooked, better lined up. So now usually there's a grid that pops up, and I'm not sure why it is not. In the newest version of Lightroom, there's a grid that pops up. I think I'm working in an older one. So I'm going to eyeball it for now, but a little distortion that way, a little rotation, and probably a little bit of, I'm going to see if I can find there's got to be a way to put the grid in. Let's go to view. Loop overlay grid, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So now I can better align things. Okay, so I'm gonna try to adjust my horizontal and vertical. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. Alright, so now, and I'm not perfect yet, but I'm getting this line to be almost straight up and down, this horizontal line to be fairly level, and this vertical line to be fairly level. So that's the kind of old school way of doing it. Or you can hit auto, level, vertical, or full. Auto is going to do its best guess to do some minor corrections. Level is going to get any horizontal lines straight. Vertical is going to get any vertical lines straight. Full will do both vertical and horizontal at the same time. But guided is usually the best option. So I'm going to click on off and then guided. And what I can do with guided is I can just draw a line on what I want to be perfectly vertical and horizontal. You can put up to 4 grid lines in. Alright, and then in order to make it fit my image, I'll probably just do a little shifting with my X and Y offset. I can see this corner is getting cropped off, so I'll probably scale it up a little and adjust my offset. I can hit constrain to crop to get rid of the white space. Now, whoops. Now, I can shift it so I can see the corner or the edge of each building. So that is going to be how you do the perspective. For this project, I want you to turn in 4 files. Your finished HDR, your finished panorama, and then a before and an after of the perspective transformation. So in order to do that, I'm going to show you there's this little switch next to the word transform. And if you flip that, it will reset your transformation back to 0. And then you have your original image that you can export. And then flip it back on and export the finished image. I hope that makes sense. Please make sure that you load everything into the D2L Dropbox for Project 7 by 8 p.m. Wednesday night. And let me know if you have any trouble.